Well, welcome back to another subscriber Q&A. This one is brought to us by Alita and Gus, who had a couple of fantastic questions. One of them related to some of the numbers that we posted and the general cost savings of the system, and we'll look at that in a slightly different way. And then Gus had a fantastic question regarding the resistance on the part of the local utilities to approve larger systems, even if those systems were limited by the size of your inverter. And so let's not waste any time. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Grab yourselves a beverage and let's sink our teeth into this. So let's take Alita's question first. Her question was in regards to, she was looking at the numbers from 2018 and the numbers for 2019 in a thread that we had posted recently. And she was confused about the fact that she thought the savings would be more apparent. And so I have to apologize for that. It's obviously my fault for not making certain things a little more clear. When we first started the Energy Sovereignty Project, the idea was to examine to what degree a home was able to achieve its energy sovereignty. And when we did that, I had to make a couple of choices. One of those choices was, well, do I go with the numbers that I get off of the Tesla Gateway, or do I go off of the utility numbers? And then the other one was, what do I do with the car? Do I plug in there all the time and then add those numbers? And so in order to keep things clean, I decided to go obviously with the numbers that were shown on the Tesla Gateway. And the reason for that is obvious, because that gave me a minute by minute, hour by hour accounting of what the house was doing. And so I would be able to then do those weekly updates without having to wait for the end of the month to try and deconstruct what went on. So obviously that was for the recording. Now, as far as the car goes, it's a whole lot easier to add that information later than it was to subtract it. And so I thought, I don't want to muddy the waters by adding that on with the fluctuations of the power that would come out. Better to just go ahead and record the amount of miles that we were able to do on sunlight, and then take the overall miles that we drove that year, and then basically amortize those to figure out what our daily average consumption was, and try and figure it out that way. So what that led to, Alita, was that when you look at the bill for 2018, that bill includes the driving that was being done. Some of it was charged here at the house, or at the studio, and some of it was charged at the Energy Sovereignty Project home. In 2018, it wasn't something that I was keeping track of. We got the solar installed in early 2018 and started, obviously, the Energy Sovereignty Project in 2019. And so I think for the purpose of clarity, let's just go ahead and review that entire thing in 3 Novembers. And so we're going to start off with November in 2017. Now, in 2017, that was when we took possession of the home. And so when we got our bill for November in 2017, that bill obviously didn't include any solar at all. And we came in at right around 800 kilowatt hours, 795 kilowatt hours of use shown for that period of November in 2017. Now, obviously, all of that was paid straight to the utility company. There was no net metering or anything that was going on at that time. And in 2018, I have to deconstruct that a little bit, because in 2018, I wasn't actually recording these numbers just yet, so I had to go back, look at the bill. And what I do know about that bill is that we then, as you saw from that previous video, we got a return. The total charge for the month of November in 2018 was 222 kilowatt hours. Now, obviously, we used more than that. I went back and pulled up this, which is from our Solar Edge inverter, to see how much we actually produced in that period. And so then obviously what it comes down to is that because that is subtracted from the total bill, which left us with those 222 kilowatt hours, we obviously used exactly about the same thing in that 800 kilowatt hour range. And so that sets up that kind of a baseline for what went on there. You can see now where the additional usage for the that you see here in 2019, that is all vehicle related. We had already removed the vehicle. That's why the amount of power is less in 2019. So, but the number I thought that you might be really interested in seeing is that, or had maybe expected to see, was the difference between the cost of running without solar at all to the cost of running with solar. And so for that, we wind up looking at what our total bill would have been. And so in the period that covers the Energy Sovereignty Project, we did about 13.3 megawatt hours of power. And so at that average billing of 18 cents, obviously we get when you get paid for the solar, they wind up paying you a rate of around 15 cents. But when you look at the bill, the actual average charge that we had, because we're not able to take full advantage of how the batteries should be set up. Normally, what the batteries were designed to do was they're designed so that they never have to draw power off the grid at peak times, so that if they feel that they're running short, they should be able to then charge at night. But obviously we can't charge from the grid, and so the result of that is that when you look at our average charge, we actually wind up getting charged in that 18 cent per kilowatt hour bracket. And anyway, the long explanation for something really short and stupid here. But anyway, the result of that charge would have been $2,400. And that would obviously not have included that $20 a month grid hookup fee that we had. And so then we get to ask ourselves, well, then what do we do with that driving on sunlight? Because that also has a value. And again, if you decide to value that, you can value it two different ways. You can either value it with your savings against a gasoline vehicle, and that would have been $1,359 additional dollars. And so that would have brought your total savings to somewhere around $3,300 for the year. And again, that's, if you're trying to justify it that way, that's one of the ways that you say, oh, well, you know, our repayment would be shorter. The reality, though, as we pointed out in a previous video, is that power cost you $400. And so it depends on how you want to look at that. If you were driving on electric, then you were driving on electric. But I hope that better answers your question. It didn't confuse you even more. But the difference between 2018 and 2019 was because in the 2018 bill, for what you saw there, that included the car. And for those that are interested, we're going to be going into great detail on all of these numbers. It'll make things a lot more clear. The average use of the car when spread out over the year was about 14 kilowatt hours a day. And so that's kind of, at least for our household, you're going to have to look at those numbers. Again, that's why we published all of the raw data for the Energy Sovereignty Project, so that you can actually see how much driving we did on any given day, as opposed to how much driving you might do. And so, your mileage may vary. And so, but our average was around 14 kilowatt hours a day that you would have to budget. Now, you're either going to be getting that from sunlight, or you're going to be paying your utility company for it if you're not able to generate it off of your rooftop. And so the next question that we had came from Gus. Now, Gus was interested in why the utility company would be losing their mind if we wanted to approach them to install 18 kilowatt hours of solar. And that's what initially I wanted to do. When the Energy Sovereignty Project was first getting started, I thought, oh, you know, what I would like to do is I would like to cover every square foot of the roof that I possibly could with solar panels and see what a home could possibly produce. And I thought, okay, you know, if I can get myself up to 15 or 18 kilowatt hours, we'll be doing really good. Well, there was no way that our local utility was going to approve that much power, even though we are currently running through a 7.6 kilowatt inverter. Now, obviously, Gus, if I am putting that much power on the roof of my house, I'm not going to be running it through a single 7.6 kilowatt hour inverter. And the reason for that is the health of the inverter. You don't want to be railing that inverter for all those months while the system is overproducing. So his question, though, was why would the utility companies have an issue if you were doing that? And that's because that 7.6 kilowatt hour of inverter power has a nasty way of turning itself into kilowatt hours. Now, as you saw, we averaged 37 kilowatt hours per day if you amortize that all the way over the course of a year. But that's not the whole tale. The whole tale is, obviously, as you've been following the project, on any given day, our usage varies quite wildly. As we go into the summer periods, the AC is on. And so, again, our freeboard during the summer generally ranged in that, I would say probably that 10 to 20 kilowatt hour a day range in addition to what it was that we would use. And obviously that went to charging the car. In spring, that went to a solid probably 25, 30 kilowatt hours per day because the home was still using in that 20, 25 range, 30 range at best. But we were producing 70 kilowatt hours a day because those days were getting longer and it was still cool. And if you then start to stack on additional power on the roof, you are now railing that inverter for longer periods of time. You'll actually wind up probably peaking it out for a few hours, even in winter, if you wind up going with that much of overproduction. So the result of that would be that at 15 cents an hour, or 15 cents a kilowatt hour, the utility companies would be into us for probably $800 to $1,000 a year, something on that order. You know, we wouldn't be able to do enough driving really to really kind of tamp that down much. We would always be sending some extra to the grid. So that's the answer to your question is that as you started to expand that out, as more and more and more homes started to do that, the utility companies realized, I'm sure early on, that was going to be an unworkable model. But that leads into another video that I'm going to have to do regarding microgrids. And so I'll end this video here because I think that pretty much answers those two questions as best that I can. Please leave comments to the video. I'll try and fill in any holes that I might have missed on this. But let me go ahead and have a drink and a think, and I'll go ahead and do another video on microgrids because it is something that we did a lot of research into in the past, and it's a fascinating topic, and there's a lot more to it than you might think. So, guys, thanks very much for your questions. They're fantastic. Keep them coming, and we'll see you soon.